The skyscraper stretched into the clouds like a monolith of glass and steel, dwarfing the surrounding architecture of downtown. Michael Faraday glanced at his watch impatiently as he waited for the elevator. He'd been working late on a new project, a breakthrough in energy efficiency that he believed could revolutionize the industry if only he could prove his theory. As he stepped into the elevator, he noticed the building was unusually quiet, the usual bustle of tech entrepreneurs and business professionals absent due to the late hour. The elevator hummed softly as he pressed the button for the lobby. Before the doors could close, a slender hand blocked the sensor, and with a gentle swoosh, the doors reopened. In slipped a figure, cloaked in a flowing garment that shimmered with a subtle iridescence, unlike any fabric Michael had ever seen. "Sorry for the hold-up," the figure spoke with a soft, melodious voice. It was then Michael noticed the subtle features, the elongated face, and large, luminous eyes that marked the newcomer as non-human. "No problem at all," Michael replied as curiosity piqued. "I didn't expect anyone else to be working this late." "I could say the same," she said, stepping fully into the light, her skin catching the soft LED lights in a way that suggested it was slightly translucent. "I'm Zara, by the way, from Selam Aqua. It's one of the aquatic colonies in the outer sector." "Michael, and from much closer by just a few cities over. It's rare to see someone from the outer sectors here. What brings you to Earth?" Zara smiled, a gesture that seemed both alien and endearing. "A conference on interstellar trade and diplomacy. I'm here to learn and to share." As the elevator began its descent, the lights flickered ominously. Michael's heart skipped as the elevator jolted to a stop, the gentle hum replaced by an unsettling silence. "Looks like we might be here for a while," he remarked, trying to mask his concern with a chuckle. Zara glanced at the control panel, her fingers hovering over the buttons. "Seems so. Is this common?" "Not usually." Michael tried pressing several buttons, but the panel remained unresponsive. "Power outages are rare. There must be a major issue." They both reached for their phones, only to find no signal. Zara seemed unnaturally calm, a stark contrast to Michael's growing anxiety. "In my world, we're used to environments that are less than stable. I guess patience becomes a second nature," she explained, noticing his discomfort. "That's handy," Michael replied, attempting to smile. "Here, we tend to rely too much on things working the way they're supposed to. As do we, but often they do not. It teaches you to be prepared for anything." Michael nodded, impressed by her composure. "Well, if we're stuck here, we might as well make the best of it. Any idea on how to pass the time?" Zara thought for a moment before pulling something from her bag. "I always carry a deck of cards with me. Do you know how to play Ryzen?" "Can't say I do, but I'm a quick learner." As Zara began explaining the rules of her world's favorite card game, the elevator remained suspended between the floors of the skyscraper. The situation was far from ideal, yet Michael found himself intrigued by this unexpected encounter. Their game started, filling the small space with a light-hearted energy, making the confined space seem less daunting. The elevator's walls no longer felt like they were closing in, but rather like a temporary retreat from the world outside. The card game proceeded with a mix of light-hearted banter and attentive concentration. As Michael laid down a winning hand, he couldn't help but laugh. "Looks like human intuition has its perks, even against interstellar strategy." Zara chuckled, her eyes brightening with amusement. "Well played, Michael. You might just be a natural at Ryzen. Or perhaps I'm just a terrible teacher." "Maybe a bit of both," Michael replied, shuffling the cards again. "So, Zara, tell me more about Selam Aqua. What's life like in an aquatic colony?" Zara's face lit up with the question. "It's vastly different from Earth. Imagine cities built not up towards the sky, but deep beneath the water. Structures are designed to withstand the pressures and to utilize the ocean currents for energy. Our society is fluid, quite literally, always changing, adapting." "That sounds fascinating," Michael mused, genuinely intrigued. "And what about you? What's your role in all this?" "I'm a diplomat primarily. My job is to bridge the gap between our ways and the cultures of other planets, including Earth. It's challenging but rewarding. Every successful negotiation feels like we're weaving a more connected universe." As they continued their game, the elevator gave a small lurch, though it didn't resume moving. Both paused, looking briefly hopeful, then resigned when the movement stopped as suddenly as it had started. Speaking of connected, Michael said, "How do you manage when things go wrong? Like now, for instance?" Zara smiled a little ruefully, with a lot of patience and a bit more ingenuity. Situations like this are not uncommon for us, given our reliance on complex aquatic engineering. Sounds like you'd have a lot to teach us about dealing with unexpected situations. Possibly, Zara acknowledged, though humans have their own strengths. Your technologies are quite impressive. The way you've mastered air and space, for instance, is something we admire. The conversation shifted as Michael asked more about her travels. Zara spoke of distant galaxies and the various species she had encountered, each story more intriguing than the last. "And how do humans measure up in the grand scheme?" Michael asked, a playful edge to his voice. "You're unique, as is every species. There's a vibrancy to humanity, a drive to push boundaries and explore. It's quite inspiring." Their game forgotten, they continued to talk, sharing thoughts about their worlds, their technologies, and their philosophies. Despite the dire circumstances, an unspoken bond was forming, built on mutual curiosity and respect. Just as Michael was about to delve deeper into a discussion about human art, the elevator lights flickered again, steadier this time. The car hummed to life, descending smoothly. "Our mobile signals should be back soon," Zara noted, checking her device. "We'll be able to call for help properly. Or maybe we won't need to," Michael said as the elevator resumed its descent. He was oddly disappointed at the thought of leaving the enclosed space that had turned into a capsule of shared discoveries. As the elevator approached the lobby, they exchanged a look of slight regret mixed with relief. The doors opened, revealing the bustling activity of emergency services and building security rushing to check on the situation. Stepping out into the lobby, Michael turned to Zara. "I guess this is where we part ways, but maybe not for long. Would you care to grab a coffee sometime? There's a lot more I'd like to learn about your world." "I'd like that," Zara replied with a warm smile. "And perhaps I can show you more about Selam Aqua, in less confined surroundings." They exchanged contacts, their brief shared experience in the elevator promising the start of a new friendship, or perhaps something more, fueled by their night of unexpected companionship and exchange. As Michael and Zara exited the building, the brisk night air felt refreshing after the stuffy elevator. They found a quiet bench a little ways off, under the glow of a street lamp, to continue their conversation. "Tell me more about this card game," Rise and Michael began, taking out the deck again. "It's fascinating how a game can tell so much about a culture." Zara laughed, pulling her shimmering cloak tighter against the cool breeze. "It's more than just a game on Selam Aqua. It's a way to teach strategy and diplomacy from a young age. Every move requires thinking about your opponent's next 3 potential moves." "That sounds a bit like chess on Earth," Michael noted, dealing the cards for another round. "It's interesting how different cultures have similar ways of teaching complex ideas." "Exactly," Zara agreed, picking up her hand. "It's through these similarities and differences that we can learn so much from each other." "What other human games do you think I should know about?" "Well, there's poker, which teaches bluffing and risk management. Then there's Go, which is all about territorial control and long-term strategy." Michael explained the basics of each game as they played. As they delved deeper into strategies, Michael found himself impressed not only by Zara's quick grasp of the concepts, but also by her ability to relate them to her own experiences and cultural practices. The conversation shifted from games to more personal topics. "What was it like growing up on Selam Aqua?" Michael asked, genuinely curious about her alien experiences. Zara's eyes reflected the streetlight's glow as she reminisced. "It was beautiful in a way that's hard to describe. Imagine being surrounded by water all the time, feeling both the vastness of the ocean and the closeness of the community. Our cities are built around communal spaces because community is central to our way of life." "That sounds amazing," Michael mused. "Earth has its beauties, but we often take the land for granted. Maybe that's why we're always looking up at the stars, wondering what's out there. Perhaps we're looking for what we think we're missing," Zara suggested thoughtfully. For us, it's the opposite. We look inward, deep into the depths. Their game slowed as they both got caught up in the discussion. Michael shared stories of Earth's mountains, forests, and deserts. Zara listened intently, her fascination with terrestrial landscapes evident. Your world has a rugged beauty, a diversity of environments we don't have, Zara said. I would love to see these places one day. I could show you, Michael offered spontaneously. There's a lot to see, even just within a day's travel from here. Zara's smile widened. I'd like that. It's one thing to hear about another world's beauty, but another to experience it. As they packed up the cards, Michael felt a pang of anticipation. Let's plan it then. A tour of Earth, through the eyes of a local. And perhaps afterward, you could visit Selam Aqua, Zara suggested. See the underwater cities and the coral forests. Their exchange of cultural insights gradually turned into planning future visits, the beginning of an exchange program of their own making. As they stood to leave, Michael felt a renewed sense of excitement about the world, both his own and the one Zara had introduced him to. Let's start with the mountains, he said as they walked back towards the building to retrieve their forgotten belongings. There's something magical about seeing the world from above, feeling like you're on top of the world. And then maybe the ocean, Zara added. To feel like you're a part of it all, connected to everything. As they parted ways for the night, with plans to meet the next day, both felt a sense of eager anticipation. Their chance meeting in an elevator had opened the door to new worlds, both literal and metaphorical, and neither could wait to explore them further. The morning sun filtered through the high branches of the trees as Michael led Zara into one of Earth's oldest national parks. The crisp air was filled with the scent of pine and the distant sound of a rushing river. This place is incredible, Zara remarked, her gaze sweeping over the towering trees and rugged landscape. It's one of my favorite spots, Michael replied. I come here when I need to think or just escape the chaos of the city. They walked along a trail, the ground soft and damp beneath their feet. Michael pointed out various plants and explained their roles in the ecosystem. Zara listened intently, comparing them to similar species from her aquatic world. Your plants are so diverse. On Selam Aqua, our flora is more uniform, adapted to underwater life. It's fascinating to see such variety. Michael smiled, pleased to share his world with someone who appreciated it so deeply. What about animals? What kinds of creatures live in your oceans? We have beings called gliders, creatures of grace, traveling in schools that look like underwater clouds. They communicate with bioluminescence, lighting up the ocean. That sounds magical, Michael said, imagining the spectacle. Here, we have birds that can mimic almost any sound they hear. Like the lyrebird. He played a recording on his phone of a lyrebird's call, its complex mimicry filling the air around them. Zara was delighted. The symphony of life, isn't it? Both in air and water, life finds a way to astonish. As they continued along the path, they reached a clearing that offered a panoramic view of the valley below. They sat on a large rock, taking in the scenery. It's moments like these I think about how much we can share with each other, how our worlds can come together, Michael mused. Yes, it's not just about sharing technologies, but experiences, perspectives. It enriches us all, Zara agreed. Michael pulled out a small, portable telescope from his backpack. Speaking of sharing, let me show you something. He set it up and aligned it with a distant peak. Zara peered through the telescope, her eyes widening in amazement. I can see the cliffs, and there's an eagle nest. Exactly. Sometimes, looking closer can make our world seem even more wondrous. They spent the morning exploring the area, Michael taking photos and Zara sketching the landscape in a small notebook she carried. Let's make a project of this, Zara suggested. A collection of impressions from our worlds. Photos, sketches, stories. Anything that captures what we find beautiful. I love that idea, Michael responded enthusiastically. We could compile it into a book or a digital gallery. Share it with our respective communities. As the sun climbed higher, they headed back down the trail, discussing potential contributions to their project. Michael proposed writing essays on human innovations inspired by nature, while Zara wanted to contribute watercolor paintings of her planet's marine life. We could present it at the next Interstellar Cultural Exchange Conference, Zara proposed. It would be a testament to what we can learn from each other. Let's do it. And maybe it could help more people see the value in these exchanges, not just for knowledge, but for building understanding and friendship. Their discussion was full of plans and projects, the day passing quickly as they returned to the city. They parted ways late in the afternoon, each excited about the next steps in their unique collaboration. As Michael watched Zara walk away, he realized that the unexpected elevator stop had not just introduced him to a new friend, but had opened a door to a whole new way of seeing the universe. He couldn't wait to see what they would discover next. As the week progressed, Michael and Zara dedicated themselves to their collaborative project, gathering material and sharing insights. It was another blisteringly hot day when they decided to meet at Michael's apartment to compile their findings and discuss the layout of their digital gallery. "Your air conditioning is a lifesaver," Zara commented as she entered, a grateful smile on her face. The temperature outside had soared, and the city felt like a sauna. "Yeah, I can't imagine summer without it," Michael replied, leading her to the living room where he had set up a workspace. "Let's get started. I think we should first decide on the structure of the gallery. How do you think we should present our worlds?" Zara set her bag down and pulled out her laptop and the sketches she had done. "I was thinking we could start with natural landscapes, move into urban areas, and then cover cultural practices and daily life. What do you think?" "That sounds perfect. We can alternate between your sketches and my photos, sort of weaving our worlds together visually," Michael suggested, opening his laptop to show some preliminary layouts he had been tinkering with. They worked closely, discussing each piece of content meticulously. As the afternoon turned into evening, the temperature in the apartment began to rise. Michael checked the thermostat. "That's odd, it's getting warmer in here. Let me check the AC." After a few moments of fiddling with the controls and inspecting the vents, he returned, looking concerned. "I think the AC's out. On a day like today, it's going to get uncomfortable pretty quickly here." Zara nodded, wiping a bead of sweat from her brow. "We can continue another day if it's too much." "No, let's at least sort out the sections we'll each work on next. We can handle a little heat," Michael insisted, though he already felt his shirt sticking to his back. As they continued to work, the heat grew almost palpable, filling the room with a stifling air. They opened the windows, but the city's breeze was warm and did little to cool the room. "To think I find your planet's temperatures challenging," Zara joked, trying to lighten the mood as they both used papers to fan themselves. "Makes me appreciate the cool oceans of Selam Aqua. I can imagine. I'm starting to think a dip in the ocean wouldn't be so bad right now." Michael laughed, his face flushed from the heat. They decided to take a break, moving to the kitchen to hydrate. Michael poured cold water for both of them, and they leaned against the counter, enjoying the slight decrease in temperature near the open window. "It's interesting, isn't it? How a situation like this breaks down barriers. It's just you and me, and the unbearable heat," Zara said, her tone reflective. "It is. Makes everything else seem less significant," Michael agreed, looking over at her. "You know, despite the heat, I'm glad we're stuck here together. It's given us a chance to really dive into this project. And to think this all started in an elevator," Zara added, smiling. "Heat seems to be a recurring theme with us." They shared a laugh, then clinked their glasses in a toast to their progress and their partnership. After cooling down a bit, they returned to their laptops, determined to make the most of their time. "We should probably wrap up for the night soon," Michael suggested after another hour. "But let's outline what we want to accomplish individually over the next week. We can meet back here, hopefully with a functioning AC, and put everything together." They spent the next few minutes assigning tasks and setting goals. As Zara packed up her things, she turned to Michael. "Today was productive, despite the challenges. Thank you for pushing through. Thank you for staying. It's not every day you get to work with someone from another planet, in any capacity," Michael said with a grin. As Zara left, the heat lingering in the air seemed a little less oppressive, their shared experiences and goals a reminder of the unique connection they had forged in an unlikely setting. The following week, Michael managed to have the air conditioning fixed just in time for Zara's next visit. They had planned a long day to finalize their digital gallery, aiming to blend the artistic and cultural nuances of Earth and Selam Aqua seamlessly. As Zara entered Michael's now comfortably cool apartment, She smiled appreciatively. You've conquered the heat, I see. Just in time to keep our focus on the project and not on survival, Michael joked, leading her to the living room where their workstations awaited. They spent the morning in deep concentration, occasionally debating the placement of photos next to Zara's watercolors. Each decision felt meaningful, building a narrative bridge between their worlds. After hours of productive work, they took a break for lunch, which Michael had prepared ahead of time. As they ate, the conversation shifted from their project to more personal topics. You've told me a lot about Selim Aqua, Michael started. But what about you? What's it like being a diplomat? It must be a huge responsibility representing your planet. Zara took a thoughtful bite of her sandwich, considering. It is. Every interaction, every decision can impact how others perceive not just me, but my entire species. It's about finding balance, understanding, and sometimes navigating misunderstandings. Misunderstandings? Michael probed gently. Just like between individuals, cultures can misinterpret each other's intentions or actions. It's my job to clarify, to bridge those gaps. Like how we're using art to help explain our worlds to each other. Michael nodded, understanding the weight of her role. It sounds challenging, but also rewarding. It is, Zara agreed, her eyes meeting his. There was a moment of silence, a comfortable pause that stretched between them. As the afternoon progressed, they moved closer to completing their gallery. Michael reviewed a draft of the introduction they had co-written when he noticed Zara looking over his shoulder, her proximity suddenly more noticeable. Looks great, she murmured, her voice lower than before. Her hand brushed against his as she pointed at a sentence, sending an unexpected jolt through him. Thanks, Michael replied, his voice slightly husky. He turned slightly to face her, their eyes locking. There was an unspoken question hanging in the air. Zara seemed to hesitate, then leaned in, closing the small gap between them with a gentle kiss. It was a soft, exploratory touch, one that Michael returned with equal tenderness. They pulled back slightly, searching each other's faces for signs of regret or discomfort. Finding none, Michael reached out, brushing a strand of hair from Zara's face. Is this okay? He asked, his tone laden with both concern and hope. Yes, she whispered, leaning into his touch. More than okay. Their next kiss was firmer, more assured, as they both accepted the mutual desire that had been simmering beneath their collaboration. Michael's hands tentatively explored the unique texture of her skin, marveling at its smoothness. Zara responded with equal curiosity, tracing the lines of his jaw and the breadth of his shoulders. As they deepened their embrace, the project momentarily forgotten, there was a sense of crossing into new territory, not just interspecies understanding, but personal intimacy. Their touches, their kisses spoke of mutual respect and a deepening connection that neither had anticipated but both were willing to explore. After several long moments, they slowly separated, still close, still facing each other. Michael smiled a bit breathlessly. What does this mean for us? He asked, his voice a mix of wonder and concern. I'm not sure, Zara admitted, her smile mirroring his. But I'd like to find out if you would. I would, Michael said, his response immediate and certain. They spent the rest of the day finishing their project, but the atmosphere had shifted. There was a new layer to their partnership, one that promised to explore not just the boundaries of their worlds, but the possibilities of their hearts. The morning sun was already warming the city as Michael and Zara met in a quiet cafe, the atmosphere calm with the murmur of early risers. Today, they had agreed to reflect on the emotional journey they had embarked on together, following the unexpected turn their relationship had taken. As they settled into a secluded corner with their coffees, Michael broke the silence. Last week was surprising. He started, a tentative smile on his lips. I've been thinking a lot about it. Zara nodded, her expression thoughtful. So have I. It's not something I anticipated when I came to Earth, but I'm glad it happened. Michael reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers. Me too. It feels like we've stumbled onto something rare and valuable. The touch was a reaffirmation, and Zara's smile deepened. Where do we go from here, though? She asked, her voice soft but clear. That's the big question, isn't it? Michael replied. I think we should just take it one step at a time, See where this leads without any pressure. Zara agreed. I like that idea, just exploring what we have without defining it too quickly. Their conversation then shifted towards their project, which was nearing completion. The gallery is almost ready to launch, Michael noted, pulling up some images on his tablet. Look how well your sketches complement the photographs. Zara leaned over to look, her shoulder brushing against his. It really does capture our worlds, doesn't it? I think we've managed to convey a sense of unity without losing the uniqueness of our respective cultures. It's a balance, Michael said, much like us, I suppose. As they reviewed their work, their discussion was interspersed with personal stories and laughter. The project had not only brought their worlds together, but also them as individuals. I've learned so much from you, Michael admitted as he scrolled through the digital pages. Not just about Selim Aqua, but about seeing things from a different perspective. And I from you, Zara responded warmly. You've shown me the beauty of your planet and the spirit of its people. It's enriched my understanding in ways I hadn't expected. Their coffee cups now empty, Michael suggested a walk in the nearby park, an invitation Zara readily accepted. The park was a lush area, contrasting with the urban environment surrounding it. They walked along paths bordered by vibrant greenery, their conversation flowing effortlessly. As they paused by a serene pond, Michael turned to Zara. You know, this project, our connection, it's been a highlight of my career, and frankly my life. Zara's hand found his as they watched the sunlight dance on the water's surface. For me too, Michael. It's been an unexpected journey, but I wouldn't change a thing. They stood together in comfortable silence, each contemplating the depth of their bond. It was clear that what had started as a professional partnership had blossomed into something much more profound. Finally, Zara spoke. Do you think this could work long-term? Our lives, our duties, they're so different. Michael squeezed her hand, his gaze steady on hers. I think so, yes. If we're willing to try to make compromises for each other, then yes, I believe it can work. I'm willing, Zara affirmed, her voice resolute. Because this, what we have, it feels worth every effort. Their agreement sealed with a gentle kiss. They continued their walk, planning for the future. They discussed practical steps like coordinating their schedules and communicating across planets, tackling the challenges with a shared optimism. As the day faded into evening, they returned to the cafe, their steps lighter, their hearts fuller. The project was nearly complete, but their story was just beginning. A tale of two beings from different worlds, finding unity in their diversity and a shared path forward. On the eve of the gallery launch, Michael and Zara found themselves back at his apartment, the setting sun casting long shadows across the room filled with notes, laptops, and the last-minute clutter of their collaborative work. The digital gallery was poised to go live, a virtual exhibit that spanned two worlds, and tonight was their final review. Are we really at the end? Zara mused aloud as she clicked through the gallery interface. Each page a tapestry of Earth and Selim Aqua. It feels surreal, Michael admitted, taking a seat beside her. Tomorrow, everyone can see what we've been pouring our hearts into for weeks. Zara nodded, her eyes still on the screen. It's beautiful, Michael. We did something extraordinary here. He smiled, proud and a bit wistful. We did. And it all started with a stuck elevator and an unbearable heat. Who would have thought? That phrase, Zara chuckled, will always remind me of how we met. It's funny how discomfort can lead to something so transformative. Michael leaned back, watching her. It's been quite the journey, hasn't it? From sharing survival tips to sharing parts of our souls. Exactly. Zara closed her laptop gently. I think that's the beauty of unexpected encounters. They can open doors we never even knew existed. With the work done, Michael suggested they step out onto the balcony for some fresh air. The city lights twinkled below, a sprawling canvas of life and light. Tomorrow will be a big day, he said as they leaned against the railing. Are you nervous? A bit, Zara confessed. It's not just about the project. It's about what comes next for us. Michael took her hand, his touch reassuring. Whatever comes, we face it together. This project isn't the end, Zara. It's just the beginning. She squeezed his hand, her smile reflecting both excitement and a trace of uncertainty. I hope our audience understands what we tried to convey. The connection, the unity, they will, Michael assured her. We've told a story that goes beyond pictures and paintings. It's a narrative about bridging worlds, about understanding and discovering. As they stood in silence, the night air cool and comforting, Michael thought about all they had shared and learned. It wasn't just about the differences in their cultures or the physical distinctions, but about the common threads that bound them. Curiosity, respect, and an unexpected love. Do you think we'll ever get used to this? Zara asked suddenly, her voice a soft whisper against the backdrop of the bustling city. Used to what? The distance? The differences? Michael questioned. To us, she said simply. To this unique blend of human and alien, trying to make sense of it all. Michael chuckled softly. I hope not. I think the wonder is part of the charm. The day we get used to it might be the day we stop appreciating how incredible it is. Zara laughed, her laughter mingling with the rhythm of the city. Then let's never get used to it. They remained outside, watching as the stars began to dot the sky, the constellations a shared heritage of a universe vast and mysterious. Tonight, the stars seemed to shine just for them, a silent acknowledgement of their small yet significant place in the cosmos. Tomorrow is a new day, Michael said as they turned to go inside. And no matter what happens, we have each other. Yes, we do, Zara agreed, stepping back into the light of the apartment. Together, we'll keep exploring, learning, and loving. With the gallery ready to launch and their future unwritten, Michael and Zara faced whatever would come with a profound sense of partnership. The project had changed them, brought them together in ways neither had anticipated. And as they prepared to share their creation with the world, they knew that the greatest discovery was yet to come, the endless possibilities of their journey together.